Page 88. 101 Great Answers to the Toughest Interview Questions. Chapter 5. Are you experienced? Question. What is the biggest failure you've had in your career? What steps have you taken to make sure something like that doesn't happen again? What do they want to hear? Before you start spilling your guts, remember that the interviewer is not a priest and you are not in a confessional. In this situation, it would be foolhardy to produce a detailed log of your every shortcoming, misstep, and misdeed. But, it would be equally silly to pretend you're perfect and have never experienced failure in the course of your career, education, or life. The best approach is to admit to one weakness or failure, make it a good one! And then talk about the steps you're taking, or have taken, to make sure that you'll never fail in quite that way again. What makes a failure not so bad or a weakness seem acceptable? This is a good question. Choose any deficiency that might be considered A+ in a slightly different light. For example, 1. You have a tendency to take on too much yourself. You're trying to solve this problem by delegating more. 2. You're impatient with delays. So you're trying to better understand every step of the process a product must go through in order to anticipate holdups in the future. 3. You've realized you're a workaholic. But you are doing your best to remedy your condition by reading books on time management. Try to think of a failure that took place relatively early in your career or one that would seem completely unrelated to the work you would be performing for your new employer. Don't ever admit to any personal quality that might hamper job performance, such as procrastination, laziness, or lack of concentration. Green light. Acknowledge a failure for which you do not appear to be fully responsible. When I'm interviewing someone, the way a successful candidate scores the most points is to make it obvious she wasn't fully responsible for an admitted failure but is ready, nevertheless, to shoulder all the blame. If you must cite a job-related failure, be prepared to convince the interviewer that you now recognize what your error was and offer concrete examples that illustrate the lessons you learned. Red light. Claiming that you've never failed. Citing a non-work-related failure. Your inability to offer any evidence that you are prepared to take responsibility for whatever failure is cited, nor any proof that any changes were made as a result. Don't declare, "It can never happen again." This is an unrealistic assessment that will call your judgment into question. Never confess a huge work-related weakness. "I've always hated my bosses, everyone. But I think I'll like you!" Now, we confront the variations of this interview question. 1. What's your greatest weakness? 2. What's the worst decision you ever made? 3. What would you say is the biggest problem you've so far failed to overcome? A good interviewer will, based on the answers to questions like those above, continue to probe and put you on the spot, searching for details, and more details. If, for example, you say your greatest weakness is a fear of delegating because it always seems you can get it done faster, better yourself, you might be asked. Tell me about the last time you should have delegated but didn't. What happened? Would you do it that way again? Would you do it differently today? Such probing can also help the interviewer assess your character, how you react to stress, how well you handle pressure, failure, or success, your own standards of success and failure, and how willing you are to assume responsibility, especially for decisions or outcomes that weren't your fault. Page 90.